Next, Samujal Shayan Purkayastha. He's a junior major in computer science engineering, and he has a minor in cognitive science. He has fused his two interests in technology and development together, and he's going to take us on a little journey down a path towards an alternative to the internet as we know it. Now, if we've seen tonight how the power of one voice can change a room, Shayan is going to use the power of his voice to show us how the power of voice could change the world. Take it away, Shayan.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with a question for all of you to think about. Should access to internet be a human right? Well, at least 4 countries in the world have already passed legislation making it so. But will passing these legislations actually ensure universal access? Only 17% of the world's population has access to the internet. To understand why the rest don't, we have to dig a little deeper. 50% of the world's population lives in under $2 a day. So they cannot afford a computer or even a high-end phone. 30% are illiterate, so they can't operate a computer. So in order to address this issue of universal accessibility, you have to address the problems of education and poverty first. So does that mean that technology in its present form can be of no use to enhance the quality of life of people living in the bottom of the pyramid? I don't think so. What is needed is to look into more low-cost, accessible technology and leverage them to make the changes that we want. Now you're thinking, Shayan, it's great you're talking about all these low-cost technologies, but does something like that already exist? Let me give you a hint. I'm pretty sure all of you in this room have a phone with you right now. And you know what the amazing fact is? That 70 to 80% of the world's population has access to a phone, mobile phone or a fixed line. So you have phone on one side, but you have certain constraints because you know that 30% of the people are illiterate, so the only way they use a phone is for voice communication because even text is a non-existent option. So you have to be constrained within voice. On the other hand, you want to create an ecosystem like internet with its vast repository of information. How can you combine both of them? I give to you AwazNet. Awaz in various South Asian languages means voice. Net is network. So basically, AwazNet is voice network. In principle, AwazNet is a stripped-down version of internet on phone with its interconnected voice-based application and portals that have no learning curve whatsoever. And I'll demonstrate to you how AwazNet has the potential to change lives in the developing world to the lives of 2 people living in the developing world, but in very different settings. First, we have Raju. Raju is a farmer in rural India. He owns a piece of land, a very small piece of land on which he grows potatoes. He owns a phone, like 80% of his compatriots in the country, and with 100% mobile network connectivity in the country. So what he does is the first time he listens, he hears about AwazNet, he calls AwazNet's portal. The system identifies that he's a new caller and guides him through an interactive voice response system to create his own homepage. A homepage on voice, very similar to the homepages that you and I use like iGoogle, but on voice. It has the information that's relevant to him. For instance, the weather forecast for his area in the next few days, citizen journalism, news that is generated by citizens in the language that he understands, in which there's no print media whatsoever, not even television, and also with the market price and availability of potatoes in the nearest market, potato that he grows. So the next day he gets up, calls AwazNet. The system tells him that it's going to rain that day, in his language, of course. It also gives him the news from his area in the voice of people he knows. And it also tells him that the market price of potatoes has peaked, while its availability has decreased in the nearest marketplace. It also tells him that he needs to take his 2-year-old daughter next day to get her immunized against polio, which he wouldn't have known otherwise. So today is a good day for Raju to actually go to the market, which is about 4 hours bullock cart ride from his village, and sell his produce. Had he not had that information, he would have wasted an entire day of farming, traveled a distance, and then maybe sold his produce at a loss, at a very high loss. So Raju goes to the market, sells his potatoes at a profit, and he avoids the middleman who used to eat up most of his profit. He comes back at night, discovers that his daughter has diarrhea. Now the nearest primary health care center is, again, 4 hours bullock cart right from his village. Not an option at night. But he knows that AwazNet has a health voice forum. Very similar like Yahoo Answers and the forums that we use, but on voice. So he calls up, records a message describing his daughter's condition. Now Asha, who's a community health worker living miles away from Raju's village, listens to this message. She knows that the best way to cure diarrhea is by preparing an oral rehydration solution, which can be done at home using boiled water, sugar, and salt. She gives the detailed information. Raju gets the message back on this voice forum, does accordingly, and overnight, his daughter is cured. So what we've done is given him access to health, which he wouldn't have otherwise, through AwazNet. And that's not the only way he can use these forums. He's a farmer, so he also uses AwazNet's agriculture forum. A few weeks later, he sees that there's this strange kind of weed growing on his farm, which he doesn't know about and doesn't know how to address. So he goes to AwazNet, describes the weed, and also describes what he's growing and the conditions in his area. That message is now translated into English and uploaded to AwazNet's web forum. Now a Brazilian volunteer who has created an AwazNet voice forum with the code that I'll be shortly releasing open source on Google Code, on his own, he listens to this message, translates into Portuguese, puts it in his local voice forum. Now Felipe, who's a potato grower in Brazil, listens to this message in Portuguese, realizes that it's the same weed that had grown on his farm a couple of years back, and the way he cured it was through just mixing cow dung and water. Gives the solution, the message is translated back into Raju's indigenous language. Raju listens to it, does accordingly, and within 2 weeks, the weeds are cleared. So what we've done here is we've connected Raju and Felipe, two people living in different parts of the world, not speaking the same language, and let them share their skills and knowledge that they have. Now let me go from rural India to urban Nairobi, Kenya. Our friend Abasi is a plumber, but he cannot afford to have his own shop, so all his business is done through word of mouth. But he owns a phone, so he calls up AwazNet's labor portal. What is it? It's a voice-based monster.com, but for daily laborers. So he calls in, the interactive voice response system guides him to create his own profile with his skills, with his rate, all in his own voice. And so he has a profile on this on the portal now. Now Obe, who needs a little bit of plumbing to be done in his kitchen, calls into this service, gets Abasi as a potential hire because he lives close to his area. He also has the option to listen into reviews given by verified customers from whom Abasi has serviced. He likes him, he hires Abasi. So we have connected Abasi and Obe, who do not know each other, and through this network, and given Abasi business. Now Abasi also needs to buy a new toolbox. He doesn't want to buy a new one because he knows the shopkeeper is going to rob him. So what he does is he goes to the eBay that he knows, and that's on AwazNet, a voice-based marketplace. It's like the Craigslist or eBay for the next billion, where people can record what they want to sell, and others can listen to that, then buy it. All happening in voice. So Abasi buys his toolbox, and there you go. We've created another ecosystem that doesn't require all the access to a computer, but gives the very same service. The power of AwazNet is infinite. And you know what the basic concept is, but very similar to what Professor Shayan said, positive deviance. How do you let people share their knowledge and skill with others like them in their own voice? And that's where AwazNet is so empowering. But there are definitely challenges. Challenges like searching through this amazing amount of data as we scale up. But in the short term, we can mitigate that problem by creating these smaller voice forums around the world and then connecting them through a web forum. There's also problems about creating a flat intuitive user interface that does not have hierarchy. But that can be done through human-computer interaction principles and whatnot. Everyone, I give you AwazNet, a natural way of connecting people. AwazNet is truly what I'd call an inclusive technology that connects people regardless of their socioeconomic status, rather than highlighting the disparities that exist. I'll come back to the first question that I asked. Should internet be a human right? Probably not at the present time. But should access to information and the ability to share your wisdom and knowledge and skill be a human right? It definitely is a human right. And not being able to buy a computer or a high-end phone should not be a barrier to that. And I hope AwazNet will address that. Thank you so much.